And then I'm good for this. Okay, so the USDA limit for salmonella contamination for chicken is 20%. A meat inspector reports that the chicken produced by a company exceeds the USDA limit. This is the claim that they're making. A meat inspector claims that it's exceeding the limit. You perform a hypothesis test to determine whether the meat inspector's claim is true. When will a type 1 or a type 2 error occur, and which one is more serious? Right? Now, salmonella poisoning can be deadly to some, and very bad, sickly if you're to others. So now, what's my claim? How do I state the claim for this? Lizzie, what do you think the claim is?
Oh, I keep asking these questions. I don't know.
I know. That's what I keep asking you to get your attention.
I mean, you could have just said pay attention. But
It's a subtle way of saying pay attention. So Anthony, help her out.
It's greater than 20.
It's greater than, so P, so because it's a percent, P is greater than 0.20. It says it exceeds this limit, which is pretty bad. That's a pretty high limit. Is this the HO or the HA? HA because? Good. So the other one, the complement, would be less than or equal to 20. And this is where our claim is. Now, we always test the HO. In this case, we're testing this guy. So we look at the truth of HO. If HO is true, if it really is less than or equal to 20%, which that means the chicken would be good, and we did not reject it, we made a good decision. We're only looking at this piece. If it's really not less than or equal to 20, and we said reject HO, if it's real, this was really true, and we said reject this, we made an error. What if your percentage was less than or equal to 20, and that's really true, but we said no, it's not, we rejected it. We're saying the chicken comes in, it's less than 20% salmonella infected.
could it go to the HO's false?
Well, first let's do all the HO is true. Let's look at it if it's true. So case scenario, we test the meat is really less than 20%. It's less than or equal to 20% contaminated.
So that defines the HO's true?
That's the HO is true. This is really a true statement. Now, we don't know this, so we did our test with our sample, but we found that we did not reject it, so therefore we said it's true. That was the correct decision. If we tested the meat is really less than 20%, but our sample says it is not. So we rejected this statement. We made an error. We said it's not less than or equal to 20%, but it really was less than or equal to 20%. Do you see where the error is? So what kind of outcome happens on that error? We're saying that the meat really was less than 20% contaminated, but our sample showed that it wasn't. It caused us to reject that statement. It caused us to say, it's not really less than or equal to 20. We found that it was more than 20 because we rejected the HO. There's two types of errors now. So when we do that, we're essentially saying, don't buy this guy's meat. Because we found from our sample that it's more than 20% contaminated, but it really wasn't. So we made an error. What's going to happen to his sales? They're going to go down. People are not going to want to buy his meat, right? So is that harmful to his business? This is harmful to his business. Everybody understand this?
Well, yeah, but if you...
Okay, Henry, hold on to your thought. Hold on to your thought. This is harmful to his business. There's two scenarios here. There's two types of errors. It really was, in fact, less than or equal to 20%, but our sample, our test, proved that it was more than 20%, so we said reject this null hypothesis. We made a mistake. You made a mistake, but it caused this guy to lose some business, right? Did you buy his meat if we tested it and said, no, it's really more than 20? Yes, Lizzie?
So the meat inspector said it was above the limit, so you're, so like we're saying that it's not?
Well, we're testing his claim. So we perform our test. You don't see the test being performed yet. We do some kind of test. We make a sample, we do a test. At the end of our test, we said, we can only look at HO. So we say, do not reject HO or reject HO. So now we come out and we say, reject HO. We disagree with this statement, the HO, not the claim, the HO. If we did not reject HO, think of it this way. If we did not reject HO, we have to accept this as true. That was a good decision because in this case, it really was true. Now, if we rejected this, then we have to take the claim as true. That we're saying there's more than 20% contamination. But the problem was, it really was less than or equal to 20. So we're saying, here's an error that we make. His meat really was less than or equal to 20% contaminated, but our sample showed it that it was really more. So we're causing this error now. The error is easier to see.
So because the HO is in our claim, it's false?
No.
The claim is true?
We're doing two scenarios. What if the claim, in fact, you always test the HO. The claim is whatever is the claim. We don't know, you set this all up, you pick whatever they say is the claim. But whenever you test your data, you test off of HO. You don't test off of your claim. So what happens is, we say this. There can be two things. HO is true, or in fact, HO is false. It's the same thing like with the guy in the that you're trying this guy, this person that committed this crime. You try this guy, and the claim is he's innocent. Well, we tried him, and we said he's guilty. So we have two things that can happen. We can send a guilty man free, or we can send an innocent man to prison based on what really is the truth. We don't know the truth when we test this, which is why we test. But we're saying, in fact, what in fact if it was really true that there was less than 20% contamination, and we said, no, there's more. We caused an error here. Our error is we claimed this guy had more than 20% contamination. In fact, he doesn't. He was within the limits, but we're claiming our data shows he's above the limit. So now are you going to buy from his thing? He could even probably get his meat thing closed down. The USDA closed down his meat processing. If you're above the limit for contamination, I have to close you down. You have to go clean everything. You have to figure out how to get rid of your salmonella. It could be costly for his business, right? Okay, follow the flip side of this. Follow the flip side. Say, in fact, that we know this is not a true statement. This is a false statement. There's two scenarios. So now go to HO and say, this is really a false statement. It's not true. There really is, in fact, more than 20%. In fact, we know for true. But when we test this, we said we did not reject this. Our test showed I have less than 20%. I'm not going to reject the HO. I'm going to agree with him. I'm going to agree that there's less than 20. In fact, there's more than 20. So what happened now? A lot of people could get sick unbeknownst to them, right? I'm allowing this guy to continue to work because my sample showed, yeah, he has less than 20%. But the truth of the matter is, he really had more than 20%. But my sample showed he did have less. So now, he's still processing his meat, and he has a higher percentage that people could catch salmonella. So people could get sick and not know it, and will still operate, and more people could get sick. If in fact this was false, and I did reject it, I made a good decision. It was a false statement. My sample showed it was not a good statement. I rejected it. So there's two types of errors. One where it hits the person, the manufacturing in this case, and one where it hits the people. Which one do you think is worse? Type 2. Type 2, would you want to harm a person? I mean, you're going to harm this guy's business, but, a business isn't killing anybody if I cut him down a little bit or make him clean up or make him get better meats or something. But if I'm going to make people die, unbeknownst to them, because it could be very unhealthy, maybe this is the worst type error. Now, what I think is confusing you guys is when I say true and when I say false. We don't know when we test it, if it's true or false.
You have to test one shot.
Well, no, you use your data to test, which is why back here, watch. Back here, guys, this piece right here. This is so important because your decision is based on your sample. You make this decision, you sample, and you make a decision about the claim, and you test the HO all the time. So your decision is based off your null hypothesis. This is your HO. You can make a very wrong decision and either hurt one part or the other. Get a type 1 or a type 2 error. Now, in every case, it could be different. So you want to make sure that your sample is the best representation of your population. If somebody's business or life depends on this, you would probably sample many times, do many samples, or get a large enough sample that you're sure that you hit your whole population. You definitely don't want a convenient sample, a sample that only uses certain parts of the country or whatever. You want the most representation of your population. That's why this is important, because you're testing and you're making this decision. Now, you don't know, in fact, if HO is true or false. That's why you test. But your errors are based on what if it really was true. Okay, how about this? Let's make this easy. All right. Let's do this. I'm making a claim. Gunner stole my laptop. He came in, he went over to my desk, and he stole my laptop. Okay? So, I'm going to claim Gunner stole my laptop. Right? Now, the flip side of I'm sorry.
Say Gunner did not steal your laptop?
Right, he did not steal my laptop. So I'm going to say, stole my laptop, did not steal my laptop.
But how do you do that with
an equal sign? We're gonna make it up.
Oh.
So my claim is, this. I'm gonna claim Gunner stole more than $20 from my pocketbook over there, my invisible pocketbook. I'm gonna say he took more than $20. This is my claim. This is my HO or my HA. What's my HO? Okay.
So either way, he stole something.
Either way, he stole something, but I don't really care. But if he stole more than $20, I'm mad. If he stole less than or equal to $20, I'm okay with that. But if he stole more than $20, that puts him into a different level for me. So, all right, this is something that you guys need to see. All right, so now, here's your HO. Here's your HA. All right, he keeps stealing, and the average amount he steals, I claim, is more than 20. I say, Gunner, I can handle you taking less than 20, but I can't handle you taking more. Bless you. So now, we're testing HO. This guy. We're always testing your HO. I make a decision based on the truth value of my HO. I sample. I do this sample, and I sample, and I test. However I do this test on this. Now, here's my decision. HO is true. Gunner knows that he didn't steal more than 20. It's true that he stole less than or equal to 20. It's true. He knows he stole less than or equal to 20. He didn't take more than 20. However, my test shows to reject this. If I reject this, I'm actually saying he stole more. But in fact, he didn't. He's only been taking less than or equal to $20. But I'm saying reject it. Okay, do not reject it. Okay, let me step back. I'm saying do not reject this guy. So therefore, I'm agreeing he stole less than or equal to 20. Gunner's, so it's a correct decision. Gunner's safe. Everything's full. If I to do my test and I reject this statement, but Gunner really did steal less than $20, and I reject this, I'm saying my sample data shows he actually stole more, I make an error. So I falsely accuse Gunner of stealing my money. Do you see? I make an error. I falsely accuse him. I call security. I say, he's been stealing money. He takes more than $20 each time. I took all the average. I did a test, blah, blah, blah. I found his fingerprints, da, da, da. I falsely accuse him. He gets 15 days suspension for this.
But he's really innocent.
But he was really innocent.
Well, not. And you still took 20.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know. I didn't care if it was less than 20. I just cared if it was more than 20. You're allowed to take less than or equal to 20 from my invisible pocketbook. I have $2, by the way. Welcome to my $2. Okay. So now, let's look at the flip side. In Gunner's heart, he knows that this was a false statement.
So he did take more.
So he really did take more than 20. Every time he goes in there, he takes more than 20. And I did not reject my HO. I did not reject that. I said he is taking less than 20 each time. Here's another error.
Oh, so you let him get away. But
Gunner gets away with it. He gets away with the crime.
And now you just keep stealing money.
Okay, so therefore, which error is worse? In this case, which error is worse?
Falsely accused, type 1.
Falsely accused, type 1. Anybody else? I mean, this is
Couldn't it be really
subjective.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Could they be
How are we
equal?
supposed
Now
to know?
you can go rob
Like, which one's worse?
Okay, so in this scenario, is his crime like major? No, it's not really a major thing. I'm allowing him to take less than or equal to 20, whatever. But now what if I say this is the contamination part? And I'm actually making this guy's business get hurt by this one and making people get sick by this one. Which one is worse for that?
So,
People getting sick. So I kind of like geared this down just so that you could see what happens. And it doesn't always mean that a type 1 is always going to be worse than a type 2 or vice versa. It depends on the nature of the crime, on the nature of the false statement.
So it's really kind of your own
I was
opinion.
just say,
Well, it
our
really
own
kind of
opinion.
depends on like who it's affecting and what effect it has.
So it's always like situational for the cop.
Very situational. Very situational. Anything medical, you want to make sure that you never harm anybody's life. No, here, do I want to let Gunner get away with taking more than $20?
But what
Well, maybe
about,
I'll
like,
catch him another time. But
like
do I
going
want
to
to falsely
jail?
accuse him? I don't think I really want to falsely accuse him. That to me would be a worse error.
What about the going to like jail one? Like if someone,
Right.
which one would that be though? Like which one's worse?
Well,
The
it
falsely accused one?
depends on your crime. Again, it depends on your crime. If you're charged with, say, stealing bonds, or tax evasion, say you're charged with tax evasion, and you really didn't evade your taxes for some reason, whatever. You really didn't have all that money that they said you had, and you go to jail. Is it worse to have you in jail, or is it worse to have you on the street? Are you harmful to anybody on the street? No, I would think it's worse to have you in jail. But say, wait 1 second. Say you committed a murder. Now I'm letting you free, and you really did commit the murder. I'm letting you free to kill somebody else. Is that better than putting you in jail if you were innocent and leaving the other person out? It's situational, very situational.
Well, I mean, if you're put in jail and you're innocent, there's still that person off.
That's what I was
Right,
gonna say.
but there's also appeals. When you're put in jail, you appeal again. How about the medical one? This might be a better one to look at. We did the medical, a false test. Okay, so say I go to the doctor and I'm tested for say I'm tested for MRSA. You know the MRSA disease, like the it could eat away your skin and MRSA. MRSA. Okay, so say I'm tested for MRSA. I had this infection on my leg. I got bit by a bug. I had this infection. It's getting worse and worse, and they keep giving me antibiotics. And they test me for MRSA because that could eat away at your skin and could grow inside you and whatever, all those other pleasant things. So it comes back and it says negative, but I really have it.
Oh, that's bad.
So that's pretty bad, isn't it? Do they treat me then?
No.
No. So what if I didn't have MRSA and it came back positive?
What if it's on?
From the treatment, you go on like an antibiotic, a very strong
So it's not
antibiotic.
like.
It wouldn't harm me if they gave it to me.
Or just do like a precaution.
Yeah. But what if I came back negative, but I really had it? Wouldn't that be worse for me? Yeah.
On a test, will we get like a?
Oh, I'm not even going to test you, really, test you, because a lot of it is situational, and the only errors that we work on are type 1 errors. In this course, we only do type 1 errors, but I want you to see that there is a difference. And this in itself is a whole field of study. If you ever, go into statistics, these are very critical. These type of errors are very, very critical. You'll have to look at your situations, and when you go to make your own survey and your sample, you actually have to look at what will be the result if you are wrong, because you could either harm someone's business, or like what if you say you buy your tires, right? You buy your tires, and your tires are supposed to give you 50,000 miles, more than 50,000 miles before you have to buy new ones. Now, for some odd reason, you only drove 30,000 miles and you needed new tires. So you did this whole sampling thing, and you found out, so let's look at your tires. You wanted to get more than or equal to 50,000, and you got less than 50,000. This is your claim. Your claim is you got less than 50,000 miles on your tires, okay? The HO, the other hypothesis, one with the equal sign, says it's more than or equal to 50. Now, no one took into account that you drive horrible, you drive through every pothole, you go over terrain with rocks and everything else. Of course your tires didn't last you to 50,000 miles. But you're sampling, and you're sampling all your friends who also drive like crazy like you do. So now your sample shows, in fact, that you're not getting more than 50,000 miles. Your sample shows that you're getting less than this. But in fact, this guy's statement was true. You could either hurt his business because you're saying this is not true about your tires, but it really was true. Now who's going to buy his tires? Nobody.
No.
Or what if you proved it that his was false and you didn't reject his? People are going to continue buying tires and paying more because they have to get tires more frequently. So yes, that's a simple situation, and it's really not harmful to somebody either way, but you're still creating two different kinds of errors, right? So your type 1 and your type 2 errors are very subjective, based on your situation. Anything in the medical field, you always want to err on the side of saving somebody's life, obviously. You never want to harm anybody's life. The same thing with studies and samples. They can never do a study or a sample and give you something that will harm you. They can do simulations, right? We learned about simulations, but they can never say, take this medicine, I want to see what effect it has on your liver. See if your liver erodes after taking this medicine. That would be harmful to your health, right? They could never do that. There's all kinds of laws out there that says, no, you can't do that. But there are tests and samples that people do. And sometimes they're not always on the up and up. They want to prove something wrong or right. And so these are the errors that can come about. So the whole thing through this, guys, is basically so that you realize there are type 1 and type 2 errors. Here's another good one, actually. Here's another very good one. It's about parachutes. A company specializes in parachutes assembly states that its main parachute failure rate is not more than 1%. You perform a hypothesis test to determine whether this claim is false. Okay, here's his claim. If it's not more than 1%, how do I write not more than? Less than or equal to. Is this the HO or the HA? This is the HO, and this time this is the claim. The HA says, then it's greater than 1%. Would you personally want to have a parachute that has a greater than 1% chance of not opening?
No.
No, you wouldn't.
Have a parachute to begin with.
Do you want a parachute to begin with?
No.
So now,
You feel better?
let's just walk through this scenario, and then you tell me which one is worse. Guys, give me your attention for 5 more minutes.
I like this match.
So now, in fact, we test the HO. In fact, this was a true statement. His parachutes really are no more than 1% defective. This is a true statement. We come through with our test, and we did not reject it. We said, yeah, I agree with it. Correct. It was true, and we showed, yeah, our data showed, yeah, that was good. So now everything's hunky-dory. Our test now, on the other hand, said, oops, I don't agree with that. Reject it. I find that his parachutes are more than 1%. Who do I harm?
Seller.
The seller. I harm the business. I affect this guy's business. Number one, I might advertise that don't use his. He's more than 1%. Use mine. I could harm his business. I could cause him, guys, I could cause him to have to recalibrate all his parachutes. No, or whatever. Okay, so now on the flip side, here's a claim. Now, in reality, he made a false statement. His parachutes really are more than 1% defective. But he lied. This claim was false.
Lies.
He lied. This was false. I come through and I did not reject this. Ah, now more people are buying his parachutes thinking that he's less than 1%, but he's really not. So now you can have a parachute
And you
from him.
cannot.
And, you know, yeah. So which one would you say is more harmful?
Lying.
The people. You don't want to hurt the people. So these are the types of errors, guys, that arise from you making a decision based on your sample.